you're trying to sell your business within the next year, the time to start is now. And the reason is because it takes about a year to sell your business. Now, first part of the process, you're gonna need to interview business sale advisors. Depending on your business size, that's either gonna be the business broker, M&A advisor, or investment banker. Now, typically we see people take about 1 to 2 months for this process. The good news is you completely control this. You could do this in 1 to 2 days if you wanted to, but just from our experience, it typically takes 1 to 2 months. The only thing that can really slow it down is the availability. And, if your calendars doesn't have a lot of availability and you're working with an advisor that doesn't have a lot of availability, just getting a meeting scheduled could take time. But again, this is going to be something pretty much within your control. And of course, the best way to save time with this one is you could just hire us. Next, a good business advisor is going to need to make sure that the business is marketable. So what they're going to do to help determine that is they're going to collect all the necessary information. They're going to need tax returns, financial statements, and legal documents, and they're going to do an evaluation of those forms. So, typically for us, once you get us the documents within 24 hours, we're going to know whether it's actually a business that can be sold. Other advisors could take longer, but that's our turnaround time. So really, what's going to be the longer part of that process is going to be collecting all the documents, you collecting your tax returns, you collecting your financial statements, you collecting your legal documents. One way to at least make it a little easier for you is just to give your advisor access to your accountant and your attorney, and that way they can request it directly from them. The timeline will be how quickly they can supply those documents. So depending on your accountant, it could be same day, it could be 2 weeks. Accountants are often pretty backed up and they go through certain times a year where they're very busy. Ideally, if you already have those documents just sitting ready to go, you could just send it right over to your advisor. You could have that all done within a day. But again, typically what we see, a day is possible. We see most people take 1 to 2 months. So after all the information is collected, your advisor believes that the business can be sold, then they're going to start putting together the marketing documents. Typically, if we're doing this is a 1 to 2 week process or less. I think most advisors, it's more around like a month-long process. Next, it's time to find a buyer. Generally, it's a seller's market, so you're going to find a lot of buyers pretty quickly. Depending on your business and the marketing strategy, you're likely going to attract a lot of inquiries. And the hard part will be more sifting through the potential buyers that come to you rather than finding buyers. So depending on the process you run, let's say on average, you're gonna wanna collect buyer interest for around 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, your advisor should whittle down that buyer pool to about 3 to 5 potential buyers. And those are gonna be the people that would actually meet you and actually sit down and talk about the business with you. So your advisor should narrow it down from, you could have potentially 100 or more people that initially inquire about the business to about 3 to 5. So within about a 1 week period, you should be able to meet with all of those potential buyers. If you're really busy, you might have to stretch that out. Maybe you want to stretch it out to a 2 or 3 week period. Again, this part could depend on you and how strained your schedule is. So after that's done, hopefully you get 1 or more of those potential suitors are going to submit an offer. And negotiating that offer typically takes, in my experience, 1 to 2 weeks of back and forth. So after you have an accepted offer, the time from accepted offer to closing, it's usually between 3 to 6 months. Now, you could have a cash buyer that moves really quickly and gets things done in 1 month. It's unlikely, it doesn't happen very often, but it is possible. Usually at the worst end, if you have quite a few things that go wrong, you can reach that 6-month period. So if you get really stuck with underwriting at the bank, if your attorneys really drag things out, which attorneys really like to do, attorneys add a lot of time to a deal. To get to 6 months, you probably had an attorney in there that's added some timeline. Or sometimes the bank might require you to file a new tax return. So a lot of times if you sell a business right at around the end of the year, they're going to want to see a tax return filed. So let's say if you're going to close a business in March of 2025, they're probably going to want to see the 2024 tax return. So you want to make sure that that's filed. If it's not, that could add some time. But just remember, you do have a lot of control. A lot of the timeline is going to be how quickly you supply information and how quickly you do things. So in that tax return situation, if you have everything ready to have your tax return done mid-January, then you're not going to add much time to the deal. If you wait till May to have that tax return ready, then obviously you've added a lot of time to that deal. But of course, there'll also be delays out of your control. I'd say the one thing that I always advise people, expect delays, and it's different in almost every sale, but there's going to be something that's going to slow things down somewhere. Bottom line, realistically, we think the fastest this process could happen is 6 months. I think most people should go in expecting a 12-month timeline. But for those of you that want to move faster, just remember, so many of these pieces are within your control, and it's really just going to come down to how dedicated are you, how quickly can you supply information, How quickly can you fit things into your schedule? That's really going to come into play. And also, to speed things up, you could always work with us. We are really good at working with lenders and trying to get deals done quickly. But then again, like we said, we can only work as fast as you give us the information we need to do the work. So if you think it's time to start getting your business ready for sale, check out the link in our bio and we can help.